First of all, this is going to sound like I'm crazy, but I'm not. But I can't prove it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Breathe. Okay. I'm sure you've all seen or heard about the hit HBO show The Sopranos and the divisive and frustrating finale. I didn't watch it when it was first on HBO, but a friend of mine got me the entire series box set for Christmas one year, so I binged it. I really loved the show. I wasn't the only one, going by all the praise it received. I also wasn't the only one frustrated by the finale. I mean, seriously, you're going to build up that much tension for, well, nothing? I get that the director wanted us to come to our own conclusions, but still, kind of a cop-out. Well, I saw a different ending a few days ago, and I'm still freaking out. Okay, start at the beginning. A few days ago, I had a day off, and I was out running some errands, no big deal. A few of my errands took me to a part of my city that I've rarely been to. There were several old-fashioned mom-and-pop type of businesses on this trip. But what really drew my eye was the old-school video store. When I was a kid, it was a lot of fun just browsing the different titles, reading the backs of the boxes, and talking about movies to the clerks. I know things are way more convenient now with online streaming, services like Netflix, iTunes, and let's face it, other less legal ways to get movies and shows. Not that I'd ever do that. Okay, also, there's no hassle of returning movies, late fees and all that other nonsense. But I do kind of miss the video store experience. Nowadays, the closest we can get to that is Redbox. So, as soon as my errand on that strip was done, I couldn't resist checking it out. As soon as I walked in, I couldn't believe it. There was literally a mom and pop running the store. Looked like it anyway. An older lady with graying hair, a hunched over posture, and a tired expression looked up briefly as the tinkling doorbell announced my entrance. She didn't so much smile as move the corners of her mouth up a tiny bit in greeting. "Afternoon," I said casually as I walked past the counter toward the shelves of DVDs. At this point, I honestly wouldn't have been surprised to see VHS tapes, but there didn't seem to be any. "Afternoon," the lady answered in a pleasant enough voice. "Hi there," an older man, who I assumed to be her husband, greeted me, also behind the counter, but until then consumed in what had looked like paperwork. I began to browse the titles. There wasn't a huge selection, as I expected, since it was a small place. But there was something strange right away. A lot of the movies and TV shows I didn't recognize or remember. That's not a big deal, I guess. I don't know every show or movie ever made. But there was something else. Other titles that I did recognize seemed different somehow, like different cover art than what I remembered. Also not a huge thing, since sometimes older movies change the cover art on nearly every re-release, it seems like. But the difference here was stranger. Familiar actors looked somehow sinister and just off. Strange. I really don't know how else to describe it. I totally forgot how creeped out I was beginning to feel when I happened across The Sopranos. It was split into seasons, and a sign said you could rent a season of a series for a week instead of a night. The cover art was basically pretty generic, just a black background with the graphic of the words The Sopranos, the R made into a gun, on each season. Then I noticed the cover of Season 6, the final season. In the corner of the DVD box were the words in white, "Alternate ending to finale." I was stunned. Why had I never heard of this? I'm quite a fan of the show, and I spent plenty of time in online forums and groups discussing various fine points of different episodes, but nowhere had I ever run across even a rumor of an alternate ending to the one episode that really bothered me. Okay, I'm a geek. Without hesitation, I grabbed the box from the shelf and nearly sprinted to the front counter. The couple looked up again at my approach. I don't have a membership here. Do I need to fill out something or get a card? I anxiously inquired. I was dying to see this and was hoping no waiting period was required. I didn't want the experience to be that old school. No, it's $5 to keep for a week, said the lady with a shrug. Really? That's all I have to do? You don't need my license or anything? Another shrug. No, just $5. It was strange, but whatever. I really wanted to see this. Have you seen the alternate ending that this says is on here? I suddenly asked, raising my voice enough to include her husband in the conversation, as it were. The husband spoke up while the lady shrugged again. We don't watch much TV. So, I gave them the money and finished my errands in record time. All I could think about was this alternate ending. I even made a little event out of it by making some spaghetti and a nice glass of wine. Such a geek. I settled down with my meal and started the show. The episode was how I remembered it for most of the show. I quickly re-entered that world, enjoying it so much I wanted to watch the whole series again. Then Tony walks into that restaurant, Holston's, and it all seems to go to hell, like literally. I couldn't wrap my mind around what I was seeing. Was this some sort of joke footage? Anyway, Tony walks in, and sitting at the bar are Johnny Sack and Jackie Aprile Sr. having a drink together. They're in their hospital gowns, and Johnny's smoking a cigarette. Gloria Trillo is sitting on the other side of the bar with a noose around her neck. Her pretty face a sick blue color. Her eyes scared me. I saw Johnny Boy Soprano further down, and I don't think Tony saw him, but I'm getting sidetracked. There was a booth. Christopher and Adriana were holding hands. They were mangled by the injuries that killed him. Christopher also looked blue from what really took his last breath. He drops a wink to Tony as if acknowledging that secret only the two of them knew. Adriana seems aloof to Tony. The couple looks happy to be together, though. There's more of this parade of the dead, a lot more. Like so many people who were killed by or died because of Tony, it seems like, were there. Oddly enough, Tony wasn't reacting the way you'd think, the way I would, for example. He wasn't recoiling in horror or running away screaming. Instead, he was showing the same unease he'd showed during that scene originally. And just like in the real ending, all these new dead patrons either nod to Tony when they see him or acknowledge him in some way. A lot of them just stare. He seems disturbed by the attention and paranoid, like in the finale I remember, but is oddly calm, as if he believes he's dreaming. The camera pans some more, and we see in another booth Carmine Lupertazzi, Bobby, and across from them Jackie Aprile Jr. and Jimmy Altieri. We see Vito sitting at a table in the back with Phil Leotardo. Tony takes his table and starts looking through the music on the little jukebox at his seat. He sees the selection of Journey, Don't Stop Believing, and is about to push the button when his cousin Tony B walks through the door, with half his face still blown off. That seemed to shake him a bit, enough to miss the button with his finger. And he's starting to get a look like, enough already, why don't I wake up? But he still doesn't look as frightened as I would be. He regains his composure after nodding back to Tony B. I guess he figured why not go with it, and once again went for the Journey song. This time it takes. As Tony's wife, Carmela, walks in, he notices Ralphie and Tracy sitting at another table. Like Christopher and Adriana, they looked horrible. Tracy with her head all lumpy from the beating that Ralphie gave her, the beating that killed her. And Ralphie's head seems to be crudely stitched to his body. But they seemed happy to be together, which was bizarre by itself. Carmela doesn't seem to notice the undead patrons any more than she had noticed the live ones, Maybe this reassures Tony that it must be a dream, because from there the dialogue between the couple are the same. The camera moves from them to a shot of Tony B getting coffee. It then pans to the door where Eugene Pontecorvo walks in, only he's wearing the members-only jacket instead of the random guy we saw in the real finale. Of course, he's got a noose around his neck. AJ comes in after him, also not noticing the horror around him, and sits down with his parents. As we hear the once again familiar dialogue between Tony and his family, we see Eugene sitting at the bar and looking around. The scene cuts to outside the restaurant where Meadow is painfully trying to park the car. I could feel my own anxiety build at this point, similar to how it did the first time I saw the finale, the one with live people. The way this scene had been shot was genius, building so much tension with well-placed camera shots, furtive glances and stares from the other actors in the scene, and just the overall feeling that something really bad was about to happen. I felt that same dread this time, but of course this time it was worse. Why was there a cast of the undead? Did they really think about airing this? And once again, why hadn't I ever heard of it? These questions ricocheted frantically in some part of my mind, but at the moment all I could do was see how this played out. I noticed I was gripping the arms of my chair to the point where my fingers felt stiff, but I couldn't move. The final moments commenced. The red herring, that's what I always thought he was, who is now Eugene, walks to the bathroom as the two black guys that Christopher killed in season 4 come strolling in, looking as menacing as their counterpart red herrings did. Sorry, even in the face of this horror, my days of snarkily arguing the finale and what it meant still rears up. My anxiety rises as Meadow finally parks, and inside her family are starting to eat their onion rings. I can't imagine where this can go. Will it be the same except for the details I've already given? Well, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same at all. I can't stop thinking about it, actually. Meadow makes it to the door. As it opens and Tony looks up, his vision of his daughter is blocked by his mother. Livia is standing in front of him, looking like she just crawled out of the grave. She looked half rotted with grave dirt still clinging to her. She smiles at her son with what's left of her mouth as she raises a gun to his face. The camera cuts to Tony one more time, and he finally reacts to the horror. His hair has turned white, his eyes wild with fright, his mouth open in shock and disbelief. He utters one word before she unloads the gun on him. Ma! The last thing we hear after the gunshots is Livia giggling, reminiscent somewhat of the episode when she giggles at Tony falling down. No reactions from the dead patrons or Tony's family, just Livia's giggle. The screen goes black on Livia's rotting smile. The credits roll in silence. The HBO logo comes up. And that's it. I sat there in horror and utter confusion for a long time. I got on some forums and asked around about this version, but everybody thought I was either lying, crazy, or dreaming. I know I'm not lying. I don't think I'm crazy, and as much as it felt dreamlike, I know I was awake. The next day, I resolved to take the DVD back and demand to know who this mom and pop's distributor was, or hell, anything I could find out. I needed to get to the bottom of it. But this is when things got even weirder. I went back to that strip, the DVD on the car seat next to me, and drove up and down several times looking for that video store, but I couldn't find it. When I finally pinpointed where I'd seen it before, instead of a video store, there was an abandoned, rundown building that looked like it had been a shop maybe at one time, maybe a video store, but definitely it wasn't now, and didn't look like anybody had even set foot in the place for over a decade. Giving up, I decided to return home, but wondered what to do with the DVD. Glancing down at where I'd placed it, There was just the driver's side seat with nothing on it. I knew good and well I'd put it there and hadn't even left the car since, but it was gone. Searching my small apartment when I got home, it wasn't anywhere in there either. It's like both the DVD and the store I got it from vanished into thin air, leaving me with no evidence that ever happened, only my memory. So what happened? Am I crazy? Did I stumble into another dimension? Was someone trying to teach me a lesson about bitching about finales? That's impossible. But so's what I told you. I've all but given up getting any real information on this alternate ending, but it's caused me several nightmares, and maybe if you hear my story, I'll find somebody else out there that may have stumbled onto this. All I know is I can't look at my own Blu-ray box set of The Sopranos the same again.